With the massive combined success of Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, Godzilla vs. Mothra, and Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, the Big G had started to attract attention from the people of Hollywood. On October 29, 1992, TriStar made a deal with Toho to produce an all-new Americanized Godzilla movie. No more men in suits this time around. This new film would portray the monster with complete CGI. 2 years later, in 1994, an unofficial trailer, if you will, was dropped for the film. The movie was supposed to release that year, but got stuck in development. Once Toho realized it would take longer than expected, they quickly set to work on another one of their Godzilla films. Anyway, prepare to dive headfirst into the worst and most boring film of the Godzilla Heisei era, in my opinion. As usual, Kenpachiro Satsuma and Megumi Otaka would reprise their roles as Godzilla and Miki Sagasa, but for some reason, Takawa Okawara would not come back to direct. Instead, Kazuki Omori would sit in the director's chair. Akira Ifukube would also not return, reportedly dismissing the project while still in the script stages. Instead, he's replaced by Takayuki Hattori's mostly unengaging and empty score that leaves much to be desired. But here's my question. Where is Masahiro Sato? Sato composed some of the most upbeat and jazzy themes of the Showa era, including Godzilla Raids Again, Ibara Horror of the Deep, Son of Godzilla, and Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. But sadly, Mechagodzilla would be Sato's last Godzilla score, and he wouldn't go on to create any of the music for the Heisei era. I mostly blame this on scheduling issues, but I doubt Sato would be completely occupied from 1984 all the way to 1995. With the American Godzilla still stuck in production, Toho decided to go full steam ahead with their new Godzilla movie, and various ideas for the antagonists were tossed around. Emperor Ghidorah, who was first proposed back in 1991, was being seriously considered, but Toho ultimately decided it was too similar to the Orochi the Eight-Headed Dragon movie. From there, the idea of Neo-Godzilla was brought up, which eventually evolved into Spacegodzilla. The final result is a poorly designed, overweight, extraterrestrial Godzilla clone that clearly did not skip leg day with those thighs. Speaking of poorly designed monsters, Baby Godzilla returns, although this time he's called Little Godzilla. And someone had the bright idea to make him look more like one of those cute plush toys you get out of a claw machine than an actual monster. Now let's talk about Godzilla, who may be the only normal-looking monster in this entire movie. The Godzilla suit was given a special mechanism that not only lets it go from side to side, but also up and down. Another awesome thing about the Big G is he's given a new red atomic breath. Despite it being a bringback from the last movie, I still think it's pretty cool. By this point, Toho had pretty much run out of old monsters to resurrect for the Heisei era. Although they do bring back one final, lesser-known monster for this movie. Mogira first appeared in 1957's The Mysterians and was severely redesigned in this movie, for better or for worse. And apparently he really likes his name because he's constantly saying it. Mogira, 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 Mogira. This giant robot would be portrayed by stuntman and suit actor Jun Hashizumi. And Mogira is an acronym, if you can believe it, for Mobile Operation Godzilla Universal X-Bot Robot Aerotype. Wow. Anyway, enough about Mogira and on to the movie. The movie begins with us getting to see our main villain right away. Wow, I guess this movie's off to a great start. And then we get to see a nice silhouetted shot of Godzilla. Geez, maybe this movie's better than I thought. But that's when I realized something. That shot of Godzilla roaring underwater was ripped straight from Godzilla vs. Mothra. Although that's not the only copycat, there are some shots in this movie that can be traced back to nearly identical shots from previous movies. We soon learn that the G-Force is now working on Project T, which is, well, a project that's main goal is to try and mind control Godzilla. Which, of course, sounds very silly and pointless. For this movie, Megumi Otaka was brought into the spotlight as Miki Sagasa, and sadly, it's very short-lived. It's not Otaka's fault, of course, it's just the Mickey character was written in a very poor way. Then we meet our second human protagonist of the movie, which I forgot the names of, because in this film, nobody cares about the human characters. The two men then encounter someone who I did remember the name of, Akira Yuki. Yuki ends up saving one of the men from a deadly spider that could have killed him. It turns out Yuki's been stranded on this island for quite some time now, and his main goal is to try and kill Godzilla. But the two men try and stop him from doing this because they were sent here to work on Project T. When Godzilla finally does come ashore, Yuki and the other men scramble to hide among the trees, and although this scene is visually impressive, it goes on for way too long. As Godzilla begins to come on land, the people at G-Force are trying to shoot a telepathy device at the back of his neck, while Yuki is trying to shoot the Yuki Special at Godzilla. If you don't remember from earlier, the Yuki Special is a handmade bullet created by Yuki himself that is somehow able to kill Godzilla. With G-Force successful with their mission, but Yuki unsuccessful with his, Mickey begins to send a telepathic message to Godzilla. But of course, the message fails and Mickey is knocked out by an electrical shock, which is of course reminiscent of a shot from Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. Out of all the Godzilla movies Koichi Kawakida's done special effects for, this space battle scene between Mogira and Spacegodzilla is without a doubt his worst. Mogira and Spacegodzilla are portrayed using tiny plastic models, which might be the least convincing effect since Godzilla vs. Megalon, and surrounding them are cheap-looking asteroid props that are obviously hanging from piano wires. Although I did find the part of Spacegodzilla flying rapidly through space flaring his arms around to be pretty funny. If Mickey getting electrocuted wasn't bad enough, Spacegodzilla has now arrived on the island and they use computer graphics to pull that shot off. A curious little Godzilla stumbles across the extraterrestrial and being the half-wit that he is, thinks he can take on the monster that's already taller than his dad. Although he of course gets a beating for this from the alien monster. When Godzilla finally does come to save his son, he is ultimately unable to stop Spacegodzilla from kidnapping him. Now let's talk about this Spacegodzilla. Its roar was a reused Gigan noise, another hint that this movie was starting to lean towards more the cheap 1970s. And it also has the ability to spawn space crystals out of the ground. Anyway, if little Godzilla getting kidnapped was bad enough, Mickey is later kidnapped by an old G-Force member gone mad. And there's a whole Scooby-Doo-like heist to try and rescue her, which I am personally not a fan of. Although, I did like some of the shootout scenes, they got pretty hilarious. As usual, the good guys triumph and Mickey's kidnapper is killed in a very satisfying explosion. I just realized this entire time I've been saying Mickey's been kidnapped, even though she's a grown woman, not a kid. Sorry about that, folks. And so, Yuki and his G-Force buddies pilot Mogira into battle with Spacegodzilla. Remember in my Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2 review when I made a comment about an obnoxious news narrator? Well, this movie has it 100 times worse. Thankfully, our ears are saved from this because Mogira finally arrives and begins to duke it out with Spacegodzilla. Surprisingly, Mogira actually has the upper hand for the first part of the battle, but of course this doesn't last long and Spacegodzilla easily downs the robot. Perhaps feeling sorry for Mogira, the king of the monsters steps in to help it defeat Spacegodzilla. Although even the Big G's special abilities aren't enough to stop the extraterrestrial. Despite all the clunky shots in this movie, trust me, there are a lot, this shot perfectly captures Spacegodzilla's power while also looking impressive. Once Mogira is operational again and it combines its forces with Godzilla, it's game over for Spacegodzilla, leading to his eventual demise. After that, the movie ends pretty much the same exact way as the last one. Godzilla swims away and the credits roll. Godzilla vs. Spacegodzilla was released on December 10th, 1994 and was welcomed to moderate box office success. It isn't very fondly remembered by Godzilla fans and is often considered the worst of the Heisei era. Due to this financial slide, first with Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2 and now with Godzilla vs. Spacegodzilla, producer Shogo Tomiyama decided it was time to end the Godzilla series. Next up, we close the Heisei era with 1995's Godzilla vs. Destroyer. Until next time.